Okay, so we're here with Dr. Tom Westbrook. Thank you so much, Tom, for being here today. Dr. Westbrook is a very good colleague here at Drake University. He is, and let me get his title right, he is a professor of leadership studies at Drake and the director of our minor in leadership, education, and development. Tom, did I get this right?
Quite a mouthful, yeah.
I know. So thank you so much, Tom, for speaking to us at the Leader Campus. I'm delighted to have you here. And perhaps we can start by your telling me a little bit about this program at Drake. This is a very open-ended question. So what is the minor about?
Okay, well, thanks, Cris, and I'm very pleased to be here. About 7 years ago, we were asked by a number of donors to take a look at the possibility of creating a deeper dive into leadership development for our undergraduate 18 to 21-year-old residential, for the most part, students. And we looked at it and we decided that we wanted to offer a minor, that for those students, we didn't feel like we should offer a major because they needed a domain to lead. But we thought that if we could create an interdisciplinary minor, 20 credit hours, that any student from any academic program could enroll in, that we would reach our goal of creating a program that elevated our students' confidence and language of leadership to create positive social change. So our focus is on change, social change, but all of the things we do and the reason why we do it is we believe our students can make a difference at Drake, in their domain, their major, in the Des Moines community, and even internationally with some of the programs that we're starting to do there. That was our hope and goal, and it seems to be going pretty well.
And so how many students do you enroll at this point?
Last spring, when we did our audit, we always do our audit toward the end of the semester. We had 140 declared students, about 240 in classes, and they came from all of the 5 colleges at Drake University. Okay,
so they come, there isn't a particular major or anything like that. They come from everywhere.
Yeah, we have fewer from education because that's probably because it's tough to add a minor if you have a major and then secondary ed. So we don't have as many education students, but pharmacy students and journalism students, business students, arts and science students, those are about, I would say about 20-25% from each of those colleges.
Got it. Thank you. So, Tom, the main reason that I wanted to talk to you today is that I know that you're heavily involved in leadership development for younger college students, people who are discovering their potential. So I was really interested in how this works. What are your best practices? What did you learn along the way? If you want, I can ask you like an official question, but that was the generic one.
No, I love it because I wish we, even after 7 years now, get into our 7th year, we don't quite feel like we've got it down, but we do feel like we have some of the parameters of what we most believe in the program down. First off, as I mentioned, the why of this whole thing is to elevate our students' confidence, language, and leadership, to create that change. How we do that? We use the social change model in student leadership development, which is an outcomes-based curriculum that's used quite frequently in America. We benchmark social change on the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the goals that 200 countries have signed off on. So we can link our efforts in service learning to those goals. Our curriculum is a blend of traditional classes and service learning classes, with our faculty starting as the sage on the stage, very content rich, to moving to the guide on the side. Our capstone course in that minor, we now move to the side and hope that our students, from benefit of their experiences in classes, can create some change on campus or in our community or internationally. And we've had some great success with that. So that I think that the thing that we're most proud of is how our curriculum does move from, pretty content heavy, but also very personal understanding of self as follower, team member, leader, but then also culminating in that capstone where the students themselves take on an initiative based on an assessment of students, based on assessment of faculty, getting the resources needed, and implementing a project. We use what's called Work of Leader. We use the DISC Work of Leader as one of our assessment processes, but that whole process is on vision, alignment, and execution. So we follow, most of our courses use some model, and so we hope that by the time they get to that capstone class, they're ready to take on some initiative that they can own, that they can create, that they can do.
Can you give me some examples of things students have done?
Sure.
I know that I'm totally going off our questions here, but
yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, the first one we really kind of launched quite well. The students ended up working with students, faculty, the president's cabinet, and we no longer can purchase single-serve plastic water bottles at Drake. So it's an environmental nightmare. So you cannot buy those on campus. In addition, we now have refillable water fountains all over campus. And each year, the Student Senate purchases a refillable plastic water bottle for every new student that comes to Drake. That's a good example of the type and extent of what these students are capable of doing. We have an academic fair at Drake University, never had it before. That was created by one of our capstone classes. We have looked at LGBTQ programs and advocacy, which has resulted in a lot of different new initiatives here at Drake. A lot of environmental type of things. We received a $10,000 grant from Wellmark that the students were successful in getting, and now have a free bicycle library on campus where any student can check out a bicycle and ride it around the Drake community. Mm-hmm. Our second one ended up having the funds, again from Wellmark, to have 3 little pantries. These are like the little libraries, Cris, but with food. Mm-hmm. And 7 in the Drake neighborhood. The Drake neighborhood has been deemed what they call a food desert. So enough people that need food. So these little pantries are self-run. You can take some food, or you can leave some non-perishable foods in these pantries, mostly at churches around the Drake neighborhood, and that's relatively new. So from the water bottles to those things, we have now from a real kind of fun initiative that the students did, and an actuarial science a science student did, was to do a cost-benefit analysis on the use of paper versus hand dryers. And after that, all renovated buildings, all new buildings would no longer have paper towels in the restrooms, but would have portable, the hand dryers. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, there's not a little logo, I wish there was, on each of these initiatives that proclaim that it was a student-led, mm-hmm. student-initiated group. But you can't look very far around the Drake campus now and not see some evidence of how these students have made change. And to the credit of our administration, faculty, and other students, all students at Drake have a voice, but lead students have found that they have a voice, and it's kind of neat to see.
Well, that's really cool. I'm actually drinking water right now from the fountain, and I was thinking about your students as I did that.
Yeah, well, good.
Okay, so now I'll be good, and I'll look for my official questions that I have yet to ask. Let's see. I already asked you in general, and you already told me a little bit about the change model, or you told me that you were using this. Perhaps you could explain to me a little bit more, or to our viewers, actually, rather than me, what the social change model is that you're using?
Yeah. The social change model in student leadership development is a pretty popular model in higher education. I'll never get the name of the authors. I don't teach that particular class, but Comiges, you know her, I think, Cris, is the author of that model. It's called the 7 C's, and it looks at some of the competencies needed. But early on in Lead 1, which is a 1 credit hour class, what we're trying to do is get people grounded. It's interesting, the mental models that students, traditional age students, come in about things like management, leadership, followership. And so we really try to introduce them to perhaps a better grounded understanding of followership, leadership, team membership, that then uses the 5 practices of exemplary leadership. In our Lead 50, we have a very large unit on emotional intelligence. In our Lead 100, which is getting now toward the capstone, that's where we use the work of leaders that uses the DISC assessment from Inscape. We also use things like the 5 dysfunctions of a team. So what we try to do with any and all of those is not just use it divorced from experience. What we're trying to do is help these students understand why they see some of the things happening on campus, how it fits in, and how these skill sets can help them in terms of their work with other students or in the community. So that's only a part of the type of curriculum. But early on, we have a 1 credit hour class that's experiential in nature, that we team the students with a not-for-profit in the Des Moines community, where they actually go out and learn about them. What is their vision, their mission? And they try to bring some small value to that organization. Easter Seals, for example, they usually help out by organizing a respite weekend for some of their families. And the students really love that. So they begin to understand what this organization is about, and then how they can help out in some small way. So all the way then to internships, which are relatively new, which have been quite successful, is an example of this. Actually, one of the students asked if she could do a lead internship, and we hadn't ever thought about that. But she had been working with a particular marketing firm, and she said, well, I've done an internship in journalism, and I love the projects I'm in, but I really want to learn about how this business is run. And so went down and talked with the leadership team, and it ended up that she had a lead internship that also continued her project, but now she's shadowing leaders, going to budget meetings, strategy meetings.
Wow.
It ended up, by the time that semester is over, she's now full-time at that particular company, and that's not been unusual. We haven't had a lot of students. That's relatively new. But the students are really seeing benefit of going from the technical aspect of their work within their major to the leading aspects of understanding that company, understanding that not-for-profit, and seeing, how that all comes together from that balcony perspective. So it's really that notion of getting off that dance floor, getting onto that balcony, and beginning to see the systems, the patterns, and how that all comes together. So we've been loving that new aspect of it. But that's also an example of how that interpersonal change or the social change starts to come about.
That's kind of an exciting development, that internship you're talking about.
And the fact that a student, suggested it really should be called the Hope Wagner Lead Internship, because she was really the one that got it started. And we've had maybe about 8 or 9 students now go through it, but many more now wanting to go through it. Cool.
Okay, let's see. The next question that I have for you is, as most of us who are in leadership development know, we were even talking about this before, for some people this leadership may come natural, and for others not so much. So I'm going to ask you an odd question. Are there circumstances in which you feel somebody cannot be developed as a leader?
Yeah, I think it was Drucker that said there may be born leaders, but not enough that go around. We need people to learn leadership skills, and they can. I think you do find some students that perhaps have more of a natural inclination to want to improve things, that examine things not as necessarily they are, but how they might be tweaked or developed. There are some, on the college campus, some natural students that are kind of cynics and want to see if they can make some things better. But we've also found that LEAD is an opportunity for students to even just find their voice. Who am I? What is my role? They may not be formal leaders, but one of the books we use on Art of Possibilities from Zander and Zander, one of our famous themes is that you can lead from any chair. You don't have to be that titled leader. That leadership is, in fact, a process. So what we're finding is a lot of students that might not have been the most active in high school, or may not even be the most active at Drake, are finding some courage, finding some confidence, and finding their voice around some issues that are meaningful to them. And that's, for us, as successful as the graduating high school president of the student body who becomes the president of the student body here. That's a different skill set. That's a different level. But not any better than the other in terms of our hope to help people find themselves and find their voice.
Okay. It's I guess a follow-up to that would be, since you're now used to working with young people who may or may not have what we would call the traditional natural leadership inclination, what advice would you have for organizations working with younger people or newer hires to help them find their voice, to help them find their leadership space?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer in what Drucker advocates, and that is that oftentimes your best succession plan is with the people that are already there, and that our role as leaders within that organization is to challenge youth, challenge the young folks on our staff, to really accept some challenges and strive to in a sense, test themselves, get them out of their comfort zone, give it a chance. To see kind of where they fit. It could be starting on some committees, or it could be, just a broad kind of stretch goal for individuals. I am hoping that those people that are seeing it and understanding leadership development from a little bit more mature level see it as that developmental process, and see that we have to be purposely developmental in giving opportunities for all people, but especially those that are on the younger side. They're the most educated, most passionate, and yet what we're seeing is that particular millennial generation often doesn't necessarily fit in. They're square pegs sometimes, trying to fit into round holes. We need to be considerate of how those individuals see life, see work, and see their contribution to life and work. But I think really it's just having the opportunities for people to shine. And I have been so impressed by the level of shine that comes out of some students here and some adults in corporate with those that I work with. You have to conquer your fear. You have to give it a shot. But I think if they have those people that can provide the feedback, can provide the opportunities, if they are working in a purposely developmental organization, then I think it can happen.
I love that idea of letting people find their way to shine, or something like that you found.
Yeah. I mean, you see that, Cris. I mean, you see that in some organizations that you walk into or do some things that you can just see that, they value the development. They and others, feel threatened by young people's development, by young people's courage. And so what's the difference between those organizations that some leaders, embrace it, and some leaders feel like they're going to take the next person's job or that person's job or something? I don't know. But I do know that there's an awful lot of people that want to make a big contribution. And I think we have to carefully challenge them and carefully provide those opportunities.
Okay. Well, I have just one last question, unless there are final words of wisdom that you'd like to share. And I'm asking, Mel and I are running these interviews for the Leader Campus, and we're trying to ask this question consistently. I don't know if you're aware that next year's International Leadership Association theme is going to be on authentic leadership.
Right.
And I was wondering on what your thoughts are on authentic leadership, and specifically in the work that you do. How can you bring the new leaders, the students in the LEAD program, to become more authentic?
Yeah, I appreciate that that question, and I appreciate the fact that ILA is moving in that direction as their theme. I think it's a great one, and it seems to be so incredibly pertinent today, doesn't it? I think that in our LEAD program, from the beginning class, we do spend time on value-based decision-making, on also on diversity, on beginning to what we call navigate new environments, learn different languages other than one's own. But through that all, and if we want to think about the Harvard prof Bill George's notion of true north or authenticity, then what we want to do is, again, within that person's finding their voice, is also finding their value system and their value structures and what they believe to be right. But within that, also not being so locked into one's view that they can't understand or have empathy for and work with others. So it is an effort on our part to help people see how they fit in. For example, service learning at Drake and other universities, I have often found that there's a lot of service but not a lot of learning. Because there's not reflection on it. It's almost like a check off. You have to do 10 hours at this organization or whatever the case may be. Well, by connecting it with UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals, now they can see how their small effort is actually contributed to a much larger worldwide vision of what is most needed, and how they can help, and how they can be a part of it. So we're trying to do that as well, to see that what they're doing is important, not just from a Drake perspective or a Des Moines perspective, but actually from a much larger perspective, and how that value base and understanding of others contributes to that. So it's not this mental model of we can come in and save you, but maybe I can help bring value to whatever your organization or whatever you're doing. I think we're striving to do that through our curriculum on emotional intelligence. I think we're striving to do that on our effort to try to get them out into some nonprofits so they see a slightly different group of people in a different circumstance. Yeah. So great theme, and I hope that we've somehow fit into that.
Awesome. Well, Tom, I wanted to thank you so very much for speaking to me today. On a personal note, as I told you early on before I started officially recording, my own daughter is in your program, and I'm so grateful for the work that you do. So kudos to you, to your team, to the faculty members, and to the students and the amazing things that they're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
So Dr. Tom Westbrook from Drake University, I'll say your title again, Professor of Leadership Studies, Director of our minor in Leadership, Education, and Development. Thank you so much.
Great. All right, Cris, thank you very much. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye now.